Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. WildMax1 here, bringing another Raid Shadow Legends video. And today's guide is going to be all about poisons in Raid Shadow Legends. Everything from the basics, like how the debuff works, comparing it to traditional damage methods, all the way through to more advanced things like how to manipulate poison damage to get the most out of it, creating poison explosion teams for speed runs, and poison in today's arena. We're also going to have a showcase in Dragon's Lair and Classic Arena. Let's jump right in. Starting off with the basics. In Raid Shadow Legends, poison is essentially a damage over time debuff. Place it on a target, and at the beginning of their turn, they will take a certain percentage of their max HP in damage, referred to as a poison tick. There are two separate versions of poison, 2.5 and 5%. Both of those just refer to the amount of max HP that target's going to be losing at the beginning of their turn. Now, unlike traditional damage that is affected by a target's defense, the only modifier affecting poison damage is another debuff, and that is poison sensitivity, the big version of which can add up to 25% more damage per poison tick. Poison can stack up to 10 times on a target, as that is the maximum number of debuffs allowed. Poison will be blocked by block damage buffs, and if a target has both shield and poison, the poison debuffs will deal damage to the shield value first. Once that's 0, then it will begin ticking on the target. Just to better illustrate what I mean by a poison tick, right here we see a health bar, we see 2 poison debuffs on the target, and we see 2 identical damage values going out there. Those are the ticks of those 2 poisons. You'll be able to identify them because you'll see a lot of repeating numbers if there are multiple poison debuffs on a target. So just to have a point of comparison for poison damage versus traditional or regular damage, let's talk a little bit about how regular damage is calculated. So whenever you have a champion and they have an attack ability, that ability will have an associated multiplier for it. Depending on what stat is that champion's primary stat, some cases it might be multiple. In the case of Rotos, for example, he scales his ability damage based off of both attack and HP. But essentially, all you need to do is figure out what the primary stats are that are being multiplied by the ability, find the ability multiplier. Then there's obviously a lot of other calculation that goes into this. I'm not going to get into this in too much detail right now, but your critical hits matter. Your critical damage is going to multiply it further. The target's defense is going to matter. The target's defense is going to be reducing incoming damage by a flat percentage. That's why ignore percent defense is actually so important for traditional damage dealers, because if you have 100% ignore defense, that means there's going to be no mitigation coming in from their defense. For the sake of illustrating this a little bit easier, let's use an example. Let's say you have a man-eater with 5,000 attack, 100% crit rate, and 100 crit damage. Now, you want to figure out what the multiplier is for his A2. I actually use a fantastic resource. That is the hellhades.com website. They have every champion here listed, and for all their abilities, they have multipliers on all of them. So if you ever want to check, you can go and make sure that you're getting the right value for them. That's a good way of also testing to see whether a champion is worth building or not, if they have good multipliers. So if you're going to plan on using a champion as a damage dealer, you want to make sure that they actually have some good values on their ability multipliers, because otherwise your gear is not getting the most bang for its buck. So now from the website, we see an 8.2 multiplier times Maneater's attack for his A2 for Siphon. We have our Maneater with 5,000 attack. Let's just say, for the sake of ease of multiplication, that it is an 8 multiplier. So we have 5,000 attack times 8. That's 40,000 damage. He also has 100% crit rate and 100 crit damage. So if he were to crit, that's 40,000 times 2. So that's 80,000 damage that he's going to be doing. Let's say he's hitting a target that has 800k HP, and that target has enough defense to reduce incoming damage from Maneater by 50%. That means, once again, his A2 is only dealing 40,000 damage. Now, I'm simplifying this a lot. There's no debuffs or buffs or anything like that. And 40,000 damage for all those stats that you had on your Maneater. Now, let's say you bring in a poison champion, somebody that has a 5% max HP poison debuff, throws it on that 800k boss or target, whatever it might be, and every tick of that, you're getting 40,000 damage. So if we look at that in terms of the stat value, for Maneater, you had to increase his attack to get 5,000 attack. You had to get 100% crit rate. You had to get 100 crit damage. And then after that, chances are you would want to get some ignore defense, maybe even had some on your Maneater to bring it down to that 50% reduced damage threshold from that boss. Let's say you had a cruel set on him or something like that. And then after that, you still need to make sure he has enough speed and survivability for whatever that content was that you were running. Now, that Poisoner puts one poison debuff up on an 800k target, and all they needed was some accuracy, some speed, and then survivability. So you can see the difference in terms of how many stats are involved with regular damage dealers and then how many stats are involved with a Poisoner. Now, of course, we haven't taken into account the fact that Maneater could have been built twice as fast as the target, meaning he'd be taking 2 turns for every 1 turn the target was going to be taking, so dealing twice as much damage as that poison tick, which would have been requiring the target to take a turn. However, later in the video, we will discuss how you can manipulate poison damage to deal damage to targets outside of their turn. But the important takeaway from this is just to say that poison allows a lot of champions to be built with a much lower stat requirement than traditional damage dealers, which is why they're so good for some of the earlier game accounts, and that is one of the biggest advantage of poison debuffers in raid. So now let's talk about why you should use poison champions, why you should think about building them, and where you should think about using them. So we already mentioned just now the lowered stat requirement, huge boon for poison champions, having them be more efficient, still be able to clear content, and be far less gear and stat dependent. Another pro, again, ignore defense. One of the biggest reasons that normal damage dealers get held back in a lot of content that has high defense, and poison just laughs at that. No need to worry about it at all. Poison teams are also very auto-friendly. All you really need to do is get poison up on the target and then survive. Whereas with traditional damage dealers, you also need to make sure that debuffs are sequenced properly, and they're generally a little bit more complicated to do than poison teams. Cons, slower. Most poison teams are going to be a little bit slower. Again, you're going to be target turn dependent, and that's just going to mean that if you're going to be building your comp fast, you're not going to be getting as much advantage out of it as if you would a traditional or normal damage dealing comp. I did put an asterisk next to that for a reason, and we're going to get into that later in the video. The other one is boss immunity and anti-poison mechanics. There's a lot of bosses in the game that have cleanses, talking about your Iron Twins. There's a lot of boss that you simply cannot damage with poison because it was nerfed. We're talking about hard mode dungeons. So poison's not going to be a solution for every part of the game. But some of the areas in the game where poison champions absolutely excel are going to be in Demon Lord Clan Boss, Amius on normal and on hard, normal dungeons, arena, and wave clear base content like Doom Tower or Cursed City. So with that, we've covered all the basics of poison damage, and now we're going to get into some of the more advanced concepts and strategies behind it, starting off with how to manipulate poison damage to get the most out of it. And the 3 primary ways in which you can manipulate your poison debuffs for more damage is going to be through duration increase, intensity, and through activation. So for duration, we're just talking about increasing the duration of debuffs, which is going to be really helpful for any poison debuffs. Just means they're ticking for longer, and in the end, you're going to be dealing more damage. For intensity, we already mentioned the poison sensitivity debuff, which increases, it's a modifier up to 25% more damage from your poison ticks. But in the arena specifically, there are 2 things that need to be considered. One is the lethal dose blessing. This just gives you a % extra damage for your poison ticks, and the Arachnelixir Relic. Arachnelixir Relic gives you an attack stat multiplier for your poison ticks. That's useful not only in the arena, but anywhere in the game, but especially devastating on lower HP targets, such as champions in the arena. And finally, activation, and this is a big one. This takes it from just being a passive debuff sitting on a target waiting for it to take a turn to then being able to be activated and having the poison tick on your turns. So you can either activate it for 1 tick or do a full detonation, which then results in some really fun teams, which we're going to get into in the next section. Poison explosion teams are some of the most fun teams that I've ever used in Raid Shadow Legends. The concept behind the operation is it's basically a poison speed team. You're no longer at the mercy of the other target's turn, and you're just going to be detonating on your turn. So the way it works is you have your champions that apply the poisons, you have champions that then detonate or activate them, and then you reset and repeat until there's nothing left in front of you. Example champions that make this kind of a composition work. Your poisoners. These are just a few examples here. We've got from your rares all the way down to your mythicals here. Kale, Frozen Banshee, Venom Mage, Calvalax, all great. Then you have your activators, your Dark Kale, your Theodore the Savant, Stock. Eleneril is one of the best poison detonators in the game. Debuff spreaders are also really useful for this. Champions like Michelangelo, Anorak, Kemptum, all those that can basically take poisons from one target and transfer them onto others. That definitely helps with the poison explosion and getting more debuffs onto all the targets out in front of you. And then reset champions, Donatello, Kaimar, Yumiko, anything that can get your activators back to their activation abilities means you will have even faster runs, just absolutely destroying dungeons with these teams. Here I've put together an example of a poison explosion team to do a speed run, relatively fast run of stage 20 Dragon's Lair. We have Stock there as an activator, as a poison placer. We've got Calvalax as a poison placer. We've got Supreme Kale as a poison placer. We have a reset champ in Fady Tealcrest, Detonator in Eleneril. Let's go right into it and then see how much fun this is. I just love seeing the poison debuffs stack up. So here we have Calvalax's passive putting poisons up on everybody in the opposing wave there. We've got follow-up from Kale, Stock, and then we have the activation from Eleneril. The only thing that's important for the presets here is just going to be that your poisoners are going to be placing before your activator activates. That's about it. And then you want your reset champion to reset in the second wave right there. And then now we're going to be waiting a little bit, but still seeing that poisons do great damage. There we saw a little bit of activation from Stock right there, causing some destroyed max HP on the dragon. So we still have a little bit of activation outside of the Eleneril on this team just to make sure that we get the breath down and stuff like that. But shouldn't take too long. We're stacking up those poisons again. Fady should be getting back to that reset pretty soon here. There's the reset. We've got all the poisons up. We've got Eleneril taking her turn, combusting for 1.1 million damage, and then just a little finisher from that smite at the end there. But under 1 minute, not my fastest, 48 seconds for my fastest for this specific team. So much fun to use to stack up those poisons, as I already said. I could probably make this a little bit faster if I were to remove one of the poison champions and put in maybe another reset champion, but still very fun team to use. And if you're interested in having me do a showcase of this and how to build this exact team or a similar composition, let me know down in the comments below. So now we just saw how effective poisons can be even in a speed team in PvE. Now let's talk about poisons in the arena. So we already talked about Arachnelixir. It is a relic that provides an attack stat multiplier for your poisons. Very effective in the arena. You get some sky-high attack on somebody like a Calvalax, and all of a sudden you are absolutely melting teams on the opposing side, especially when coupled with things like lethal dose. Stock the Broken. He is another key enabler along with Lethal Dose and Arachnelixir, and Stock is a champion who has a unique passive in Raid Shadow Legends as of filming this video, and that is that he allows for HP burns and poisons, critically, to cut through block damage and unkillable. That means that that one drawback we saw in the very beginning when I talked about the basic of the poison debuff is no longer in play, which means that he can melt through Marichka teams, Siegfrieds, through anybody that's going to be putting up block damage or unkillable, hoping that it's going to save them. Your Nick and Noels, absolutely key enablers. So Arachnelixir, Lethal Dose, and Stock the Broken. Chances are, if you're going to be going into the arena, you will see one or all of these featured on a team. In terms of best uses, Calvalax is the best anti-speed meta right now. He's so effective. If you have him with the Arachnelixir, you have him with your Stock. You see a team there without Stone Skin on them. They're all fast. You've got your Arbiters, you've got your Lady Mikages, you've got your Armands, your Fabians. Put a Calvalax against them, pretty much just going to melt them all. Now, anti-buff, turn meter fill, and heal Nell is the champ for that. She has a passive where anytime any one of those are occurring, she is putting poisons up on the opposing team. Couple her up with a Stock the Broken, and you're going to see the opposing team just absolutely melt itself as she just sits and laughs under her Stone Skin with her sky-high attack. Very, very effective in the arena, and we're going to take a look at one of these teams in action right now. So in this team, we're featuring Calvalax and Stock, two of the best poison champions in the arena as of the filming of this video. Calvalax is there as an anti-speed champion, applying and doing most of my damage with his Arachnelixir and 5-star Lethal Dose. We've got Stock there for his amazing passive. We've got Mikey there as a debuff spreader, if need be, and Donnie there as a safety. We see on the opposing side a Nick and Noel combo, very much the meta in the arena as the filming of this video. Even if they manage to get an unkillable up, stock is going to make sure that the poison goes through and takes them out, but they do not have stone skins up, and we see an immediate fall from the Noel and the Crixie on the opposing side. I do not see this Nick surviving that either. We do have a Toshiro under 2-turn stone skin, very unusual. We'll just apply some more poisons on the Nick, wait for him to go down. There we go. Skip a little bit further ahead until this Toshiro is ready to get out from under his stone skin. And there we go. Mikey finished this one off. And there it is. Nice and easy if we didn't have a 2-turn stone skin Toshiro right there. All the damage coming in from Calvalax. Calvalax, again, being the premier anti-speed champion as of the filming of this video. Poison very much in the meta for that reason and able to counter even some of the strongest champions on the opposing side. And as a final poison tip, I will just say that Toxic Set is your friend. Toxic Set is a 4-piece set that gives you a 75% chance to place a 2.5% poison debuff, especially if you're still early game and you're trying to get your way through Clan Boss and you're not dealing enough meaningful damage through traditional or regular damage dealers. Put a Toxic Set on somebody, get them a little bit tankier, and watch the poison do the work for you. It is very viable and is something that is often overlooked by a lot of players. And the other thing I'll say about poison is build for a purpose. This is pretty much standard for all advice in Raid Shadow Legends. Make sure you know what you're building your champions for. Poison champions are a lot of fun, but they lose some value in the mid game, especially in places like Hydra and Chimera, unless you're building them for a specific purpose. So if you need a poison champion to take down Clan Boss, if you need one for the arena, if you have the ability to put together one of those really incredible teams or a speed team, absolutely go for it. But otherwise, I would say just make sure you know where poison champions are going to excel and where they have that disadvantage. And there you have it, everybody, the official Wild Max 1 poison guide for Raid Shadow Legends. If you liked today's video, please consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. Let me know down in the comments below if there's any other guides or showcases that you'd like to see on the channel. Thank you for watching today's video. Thank you for your time. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.